All right. So we're up live again. We are back at it as I promised. This is round 2 of live streaming this week. And so let's see. Couple things. Hey, what up, Alex? How's it going? Fimian in the chat. What up? Okay, actually, quick question. Can y'all hear the lo-fi music coming in the background? Because I have it playing. It looks like the audio source is coming through. Oh, of course, it is going. Okay, so that's good to know. Oh, wait, nope. Okay, that's weird. It says that it's an audio stream. Okay, that is something I will fiddle with another time. No big. I have not had background music before, and that doesn't change anything at this point. So, Alex, you and I are overdue for a catch up. So if you would be down sometime, would love. Choking on my water. Okay, I owe you an email. Sorry, I saw your email. I will get back to you. But yes, let's catch up, hang out sometime. I got my Switch up and running nowadays, so I don't know if there's any like multiplayer stuff we can do. But anyhow. All right, let's kick this off, shall we? Okay, I think good on the mic levels. Great. All right. Welcome everyone. Obsidian Office Hours it's officially back. So I guess as a little bit of a recap, for those who went with us with Build with Ben yesterday. So basically I disappeared for a little while, last couple months, and a lot of it, to be honest, boiled around this idea that I had this idealized version of what I wanted my content to be when I created it. Because one of the things that has always driven me with doing this, to be honest, is I'm doing this because honestly, I love sharing the information that, or not even I do love sharing information, but I think as I'm reflecting on this, what drives me actually further in terms of why I do content creation is because I think, how do I say this? I really hate it when I feel like people are learning a lesson that could have been shared in advance. So in other words, I guess preventing pain. And there's already so much to do in life. There's so much to learn, so much to try, and so many new things to explore that to me, it seems kind of silly that of all the things I try and all the things I do, that those aren't at least represented somewhere, right? Because obviously it's another thing to like get people to be able to understand it or to make people aware that the content even exists. But I think at the end of the day, that's actually a lot of what drives a lot of the content I create, is that desire to, I don't know, just reduce the amount of friction that we have in this world so we can do new things rather than solving the same problem over and over again. Which I understand is an inherent part of being a human being, right? We can't just transfer our knowledge and experience to people as much as we'd like to. Some of it does need to be learned the hard way, but I'd argue some of it doesn't have to be learned the hard way. So whatever I can alleviate pain point wise for those kind of things, that's honestly why I sit here in this chair. But as a result, though, one of the challenges with that, though, is since it's more about a principle driven desire for content rather than any sort of monetary benefit. So for example, I had a question actually recently regarding like people were looking to do the subscription via Twitch. And so for those, if you didn't know, basically it allows you to, basically you pay a monthly fee, helps to support the creators. And it's a wonderful thing. I support actually a number of Twitch creators on there through this process. For me, I've never turned it on basically, and they've asked why. And for me, like at the moment, I'm trying to really focus on just content creation for like, I don't know, call it not the essence, but for me, I didn't want it to be a monetarily driven thing. And so you've also probably may have noticed that I don't do sponsored posts, don't do sponsored content, because at the end of the day, to me, like the content that resonates with me is the stuff that I actually use and the stuff that I actually enjoy. And that's what I want to be sharing with you. So it's one of those things where you can always trust that in this space, if there is anything that I'm doing, it's probably, or talking about, I think I'm almost always paid for that. I think very rarely is anything given to me for free. And even then, so for example, I had a friend ask me to review a book recently. Like I'll still purchase their book at the end of the day, because again, I don't know, it's a principle driven thing. I'm going on a bit of a rant at this point, but basically I had this idealized version of what I wanted the content to be. I failed to live up to it in my mind as far as creating the streamlined content. And as a result, I let perfection get in the way of progress. And so I call it the POP principle. Progress over perfection, or you can flip it to perfection over progress. Depending on how you flip those, changes kind of your mentality, right? And perfection over progress prioritizes basically doing the perfect thing. And as we well know, when you do that, a lot of times you don't often live up to those ideals. And a shout out again to Jacob for having this conversation with me earlier this week. But by me getting caught up in not creating the perfect content, it was clear to me that I was not even delivering anything at all. And while I did have some comments regarding some of the recordings that I posted on YouTube being a bit confusing for people to follow, what I failed to realize at the time was that that format of content isn't meant to be streamlined. And so I guess this naturally goes into the second part of what I wanted to do, kind of as a sort of intro welcome back for those who are joining for the first time or watching this, is that Obsidian office hours is really just that. Like you would expect in school, you have someone who sits at their office and they're here for when you have questions, and it can be a really interactive and dynamic piece. As a result, though, since people don't always have questions, sometimes they're just there to hang out. I didn't want to make it just like this awkward, like not necessarily awkward, but like just me sitting there, like typing away at things, being quiet while like we put on background music. I know that's a style of streaming for me. Part of the fun with this is getting to interact with you all, but then share something. So as a result, usually I try to have some sort of topic around each Obsidian office hour, so people at least can have something to take away from it as far as my own thoughts. But as a result, though, a lot of this is about sort of live improv in the sense that I've done some prep work on the topic, but you're getting to hear what I think live in action. It's not, how do I say? It's not filtered, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. I'll give live reactions and I'll try to figure some stuff out. And so as a result, though, one of the things that I think the live stream will do for people is, one, this gives us a chance to talk, interact. And then secondly, the other thing that I'm excited for this format is it gives me also a chance to just sort of test out different things and streamline it. So in the future, when creating sort of the more polished YouTube videos or blog content, that kind of thing, like those will be streamlined, right? So if I ever want to do like a how to use Obsidian Bookmarks efficiently, you can expect to see that video as a separate thing. Whereas I'm trying to be better about the titling so people have, how do I say this? So we can set the expectations correctly with everyone, is that for these sort of live Q&A sessions, it's going to be a little bit on the go, a little bit more on the cusp. And then you'll get to hear my live reactions to things. And then otherwise, and so as a result, the learning won't be as streamlined. But I think what I hope that this will do is provide just a more organic place for that sort of discussion to happen. But otherwise, you can, going forward with the actual YouTube videos get polished, then you'll get that more sort of streamlined learning experience. So that's kind of where my head's at right now with that. So that is Obsidian office hours. So I just wanted to make sure I covered that before we kind of dove into how things are going. Alex, I just saw your comment. Yes, your water-based assassin did damage, but it did fail. And I say this as I take another drink. Okay, great. So, since we have the introduction set up, I think let's go ahead and just dive right in, shall we? I'm going to go over, boom, live screen. All right, mic is still up, which is good. And okay, yep. So, first agenda, we already talked about what is Obsidian Office Hours for those new. And now we're going to talk about our topic at hand for today. And so the title of this particular session is a first look at Obsidian Bookmarks. And so this is one of those delineations that I hope will help better set expectations going forward when people kind of check this out, is that a first look is basically that. We're going to go ahead and check out the feature, get an overview of it, and then you're going to see me play around with some stuff, offer some ideas, some reactions to it, and then kind of do like a quick wrap up. So let's just jump right in. All right. So let's actually talk about what Obsidian there is. That was my hands in the wrong position. All right, Obsidian Bookmarks. Let's bump this up a little bit so that hopefully it's a little bit, easier to read for those watching the recording. Okay, so You might be thinking Obsidian Bookmarks. What's the deal? So this was to be clear, this was released a little while ago. So for anyone looking for like the most like if people are talking about the changelog, that kind of stuff, there are a lot of YouTube videos who cover Obsidian Bookmarks. Highly recommend googling them. Check out their impressions of it. Nick and Nicole are the ones that immediately come to mind in terms of recommendations. I'll make sure to drop their videos below if you want to check that out. But basically, as you can see here from the docs, it's basically saying, as you would expect of a bookmark, it's about being able to access something quickly. And so I gotta admit, when I first saw this, I was kind of like, okay, what do you, like? This is basically like, isn't this just favorites? So I mean, if we go back inside of a folder, right, and we have a note like inbox, couldn't I just favorite this thing? And so this is no longer in the UI at the time, but there was a starred feature. And so you could star a bunch of notes, and it was honestly, it was kind of simplistic in terms. If I vaguely remember, it was just like a static thing. But the thing about bookmarks, though, so let's go ahead and actually let's see, can we bookmark this right now? Okay, here we go. If I right click and click bookmark, you'll see that it tells me the path, the title. So this time I'm going to call this like my inbox, and then there's no group right now, so I'm just going to save it. And if we take a look, actually, you'll see that this is what you would expect, right? It just bookmarked a link to my notes. So here you can see my Obsidian course, my inbox, but then you can also create groups now. So you can be like, you know what, this is going to be like my dashboards. And so actually inbox can go in here. Okay, great. This is good. And what's nice about this too, you'll notice though, is that the bookmark automatically gives you an alias by default. So if we go back to edit it, hopefully I get that modal. There we go. You'll see now that rather than having to be constrained to the file name, you actually have a chance to rename it to what you want it to look like. And so that was always, I think, a little bit of a complaint regarding the file structure, file explorer that we see here, is that you are limited to the characters that you would expect in a typical file name. So I know some people automatically put emojis and stuff, but for those who really care about like cross-platform syncing and that kind of stuff, like I know Dropbox had an issue with emojis at one point. Not great for file name because you could break syncing across your services. But with this, if we really wanted to, I mean, interesting, it has a page here, but could I do something like this? So I can literally do an inbox tray emoji and save that. And you'll see, hey, look, the emoji is there, but when I go back to this inbox, it doesn't appear. And I don't know how I feel about this just yet, but I think probably it's a good thing, is that this alias that's being represented inside of your bookmark is not impacted in here as far as the actual alias. So in other words, I think if I close all of this, so let's close everything and do my inbox, this is really interesting. Check this out. Now your bookmarks are actually included as a way to queue up your file. And I'm actually pretty excited about this because one of the downsides to aliases, I love aliases in general when it comes to Obsidian, is that it would pervade into the search functionality. So in other words, so let's take the instance of Obsidian, which is the easiest one. Obsidian here, I do a prefix with the @ symbol to let it know that it's a proper pronoun. Actually, no, not a pronoun. I keep messing that up. A proper noun is what it is. So in other words, it's like an app. It is a thing. It's a thing that's important to me, right? But if I do Obsidian like this, actually, let me do this real quick. I've realized this example might be a little bit tricky to illustrate because I tag Obsidian in a lot of different things, but that's fine. So if you open my sandbox note, for example, and let's say we want to talk about just Obsidian as general, like I love watching videos of people sharpening Obsidian like this. Okay. So Obsidian here, in case you didn't know, refers to the rock that you can actually use to sharpen and create really sharp tools. Now, the thing about Obsidian here is you notice at the moment it's a new note because it's doing this light gray thing for my theme at this time. But if we go back, actually, let me split this up into another view. So let's do my sandbox note. I think it was sandbox note. Great. If I change this aliases now and I add in Obsidian, actually, let's do the capital O first to see what happens. So one, we can see it's totally fine. And so if we look up Obsidian now, you see we have this big Obsidian, so the capital O, and then you see that it references the @ symbol Obsidian, right? But if we go ahead now and change this to a lowercase Obsidian, and then we do Obsidian one more time, you'll now notice that, oh, this is a good thing. Okay, maybe that changed at one point. I do remember this being slightly different. In that Obsidian, like the alias, used to actually kind of override the point of reference. So this is a very good thing if that's the case. Because we can see here, this Obsidian is linked. Ooh, okay, I see what I was saying now. Okay, check this out. So okay, right here, very clearly all tagged Obsidian, and it's okay that there are aliases for Obsidian, but the alias is not actually being queued up via the backlinks that we see here on the right. However, when we're in Obsidian over here, though, you'll notice the capitalization does not matter. It's clear that there's a linked mention in my sandbox note of Obsidian here. But the issue here is that in unlinked mentions, you'll notice that what is Obsidian is now being used everywhere. And so that to me is an interesting outcome of this, because this Obsidian is not the same, as much as we can say that it's related because Obsidian the Note app is related to the Obsidian the Rock. This is what it was named after. I do think this is an interesting side effect as a result, because it's not truly a mention, because I'm not really talking about the rock here. I'm talking about the app. So I'm actually curious in this particular case, in the what is Obsidian, in this event, if I were to switch this out and to actually just reference the alias instead, like this. So you can see here, alias to the actual note, just like that. Will we see that it's been changed? So, fascinating. We'll notice now that the unlinked mention disappears from the plain text Obsidian reference, which honestly, as I think about it, oh, I guess that makes sense. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. That. Okay, let me explain what I did real quick, because I imagine there will be questions about that. So there will be times you're going to want to use an alias. And so for whatever reason, let's assume it was like 1, 2, 3 Obsidian, right? Something you wouldn't remember. I'll do an even more random number. Like, there you go, 373. You're like, oh, I want to use that alias. What was it? So you go like Obsidian, and you're like, well, I know it was the proper noun one. So it's like, okay, that's Obsidian. And then you're like, okay, that's fine. But you're like, what was my alias? If you do the pipe, symbol, which is for me shift / so the / is this symbol. If you do that, you'll see that it automatically queues up all of your aliases automatically. So you don't have to like manually type it yourself, which I use this shortcut a lot, to be honest. So anyhow, so that's what that was earlier. So let's do that one more time. So I'm just going to do Obsidian, and then I want to do, this as my that. There you go. And so now that we have that, come back here. Great. Okay. So that is good, that it means that you can actually properly scope things. One of the concerns I had at one point, I feel like I did have a legitimate reason for this. I was afraid of using aliases like this in the plain language of like no @ symbol, like no distinguishing label, because I was afraid of it like basically getting polluted into other notes that were actually using that. So this is particularly a problem with technology and app names, because they tend to like to use either things that already exist. So great example is Bolt, for example. Bolt, lightning bolt, jolt. I don't know. There's a lot of things Bolt can be used in different contexts, but Bolt as an app is a different thing, which is why I use the prefix approach when it comes to proper nouns. Anyhow. That all to be said was, I know it's kind of a tangent, but it was related to this benefit now that we're seeing with bookmarks very naturally, is that you can provide aliases that aren't going to impact everything else. So in that regard, now that so I'm going to delete this Obsidian files, delete current file, done. Okay, so now if I want to bookmark this, I'm a big command palette person. So let's see, can I bookmark? Great, bookmark this. And we're just going to call it Obsidian, right? And there you go. There we have our Obsidian file here, which is great. But as we'll notice, though, even though it's called Obsidian, it doesn't actually impact anything down here, right? It doesn't all of a sudden ingest all of the Obsidian plain text that exists. It's just on its own, which I actually really like. And so the other benefit that I'm seeing, hey, I see Connor here in the chat. What up? The other thing I really like about bookmarks, too, is that it allows people to do sort of the flat file structure that I've been recommending in terms of, oh, wow, I have a lot of cleanup to do. Anyways, so for example, if you look at my Zettelkasten, there's just a ton of notes, basically. And it's flat. And one of the complaints, understandably so, is that some people like to do things in folders. And one of the challenges I've always found with folders is that they can only live in one place. Although as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I might actually be mic dropping the wrong thing. So for instance, if I created a new one called note-taking apps. All right, let's see if this works. And let's move Obsidian in here. All right, great. Let's say I create a separate one and let's call markdown apps, right? We have note-taking, we have markdown apps. If I queue the bookmark again, so Command P bookmark, oh snap. Obsidian app, markdown app, save. Oh, that's sad. Oh, that was disappointing. I was really hoping that I could do multiple bookmarks for a single app. Okay, hold on though. Hang on, because we're going to dive into this next feature that I think might actually let me do the hack that I want to. So, okay, we've covered the high-level bookmark, kind of its functionality, the fact that you can alias. And so as you can see here, you can bookmark a ton of different things. We just did notes, but apparently you can bookmark folders, graphs, searches, headings, a lot of different things. But this is what I want to actually dive into. The headings. My voice cracked. Sorry about that. Okay, what is Obsidian? I'm actually curious now. So if I instead do the bookmark here, and what if I bookmark the block under the, okay, bookmark heading on the cursor. Let's do that. Okay, so it's clearly showing me this, and I can say Obsidian, and this time I'll put it in Markdown apps and save. Okay, I think I know how this is going to go, but we're going to try one more time. Bookmark heading under cursor, and this time we're going to go with new Obsidian, and this time we're going to go with note-taking apps and save. Oh, okay, this is interesting. I did not expect that to happen. What we just did is, so if I close this, if I open this, there's my highlighted, there's my bookmark. What is Obsidian? If I open this, you'll see new Obsidian, also bookmarked there. This gives me a sigh of relief because, and I think I can actually understand why it was designed this way. But at the bare minimum, what I will say about this is, this is really, really important because now we actually get a chance to have structured relationships in a context that people are familiar with, particularly with folders. So the way I'm already thinking about this is, imagine if you're writing a paper, blog post, there's many different contexts for this, or you're just honestly collecting information. Your projects could really well be considered folders. So if it's just like Obsidian, like intro to Obsidian blog posts, like we could do something as simple as, look, so if I'm like, what introduction to Obsidian. Okay, great. I don't have that note right now. So then I could bookmark this. Bookmark, and I'm going to go right into the intro blog post. Although, can I actually autocomplete that? Okay, it looks like, okay, great. Keyboard shortcuts do work, so you can tab into it, type it. It's not a proper autocomplete. I wish it was that, because then you could see all the results. But I understand why they use the select drop down, and then I can just leave it actually, because I don't mind it being the title. But then what's cool here is that as you're thinking about things, if you're still on the fence of what to go inside of here, there's nothing stopping you from going like, okay, well, here's a what is Obsidian. So I'm gonna actually bookmark this heading, and let's call this what is Obsidian, and we'll bookmark this into here. Oh, yep. I see a really interesting workflow for this, because now you get even more functionality out of your bookmarks than ever before, because you basically allow yourself to like have some semblance of organization to what you're doing, and then be able to actually then split out your notes before you actually split it out. Because there's nothing stopping me from, again, in case you didn't know, you could always embed it. So if I do like @Obsidian and then like what is Obsidian like this, you'll see that I'm actually embedding this directly in the page. But the problem with this is that oftentimes our notes are guidances towards what we're trying to write. So in the instance of writing a paper, if you're a student or you're writing blog posts, for instance, you don't want the same paragraph to show up in every single note, or sorry, in each paper you write, because there might be a lot of relationships, but let's face it, you're going to kind of tweak it to the tone, style, and message. But that doesn't mean your notes aren't relevant to helping you understand that. And this right here is interesting. Okay. I think seeing the fact that you can split headings up, the same heading into multiple contexts, is really cool to me. I gotta admit. Yep. The only thing though, which I can see as a drawback to this approach, if you are organizing and thinking of your notes, have it mentioned as yeah, it's no longer associated. So what would be cool though, actually, let me just make sure I'm not totally wrong about this. Display, groups, filters, neighbors. Yeah, okay. So if we go into here, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Add, remove, bookmark multiple files. That's fine. That's like just usage things. If we're looking at this though, this does mean that you lose a little, not a little, you lose the link context bit. So the fact that they're not truly related just because you group them together. I could see a world though, in case the Obsidian team, again, this is not a serious request at the moment. This is an idea, maybe, honestly, knowing how good the Obsidian team is, they probably already thought about this. But again, for the purposes of thinking aloud, the fact that someone is making a point to relate these two inside of a bookmark group context, I would argue says something about their mental network as far as the notes and the thinking that goes behind it. Oh, is it skipping for anyone? Houstorium, hello, how's it going? Okay, Alex, I apologize if it's skipping. Is it? Let me know if it's still doing that. Unfortunately, I cannot see the timestamp on the Twitch thing. Maybe I really do need to solve this chat situation I have, but progress over perfection. That's where we're at. So, Alex, if you're still around, or if anyone else is, if you're seeing any skipping, please let me know. As far as I can tell, we're still good to go on this end. But it could have been a short thing, like a latency thing. So hopefully the recording is good to go. I'll try to check that for later to see if anything happened. Okay. What, Hung Soo in the house? What up? Okay, great. No skipping. Okay, well, so we'll see. Again, this is one of the reasons I record and push live. So, yep. Yes, it's been a little while. I'm glad that you could be here live as well. All right, Nikolai here just briefly. It's good now. Okay, great. Perfect. Then let us soldier on, shall we? Cool. So we talked basically bookmarks. I just wrapped up my thoughts regarding the fact that, again, for a user to explicitly bookmark something and then group them, it's the grouping part that I think is interesting, because you could argue a list of bookmarks doesn't represent anything more than the desire to just save something for reference later. That's what I would argue the intent is. The moment someone has folders, though, I would argue they actually do have relationships between them. I make that fundamental argument to start, because it's saying that these things exist. Now, for those thinking, how can I make use of this now, right? Because obviously the team hasn't built that into it. There's no way to say linked bookmarks, for example, or sibling bookmarks. You know, if you're thinking from like, anyways, I digress. That's the word I'm looking for. In this case, then, what I would argue then is that bookmarks are a great way to call it sketch out the relationship between your notes. So once I'm in here, and let's say, okay, so intro to Obsidian. What else? What is let's see, Obsidian intro. Is there anything else I have in here that I can make? Let's see, Anki. Nope, that's that. Or Anki. That's not. I would argue that's absolutely not introduction. Tech stack. I talked about that. Yep, keyboard first. You know, like maybe markdown intro. Do I have a markdown intro? No markdown intro. Okay. So why Obsidian? Do I have a why Obsidian? No, why Obsidian? Okay, so this shows like clearly I'm at the point where I still need to do a lot more writing on this part. But then I would argue you probably don't want these things to live in perpetuity forever. At least the more, I'll call it project-based bookmark groups. You have an intent of grouping them together to see things, to help you organize your thoughts, almost like generate an outline to some extent. But as a result, though, I would argue once you're like, okay, so my first heading is what is Obsidian, right? And you've talked about that. Like maybe if you really want, you can do like call it like basically a bibliography of like what helped you collaborate this together. And then this is where you could do the what, can I do the what is, will this work? Yeah, what, oh no, sorry. That just does it within the current note. So what is Obsidian? Like there's nothing stopping you from creating this bibliography. And then once you do this, although I'm actually kind of curious now, if I go back to this part, yep, okay, it is linked. So now if I go back, local graph, they are explicitly linked now. So then once we have this, arguably, we can just remove this whole bookmark group. Oh, that's not what I want at all. Oh, you can create nested bookmark groups, even better. But then where's remove? Remove. And then, okay, that's something to note. One, can I undo that? I cannot undo that. Okay, which is totally fine. Honestly, for those who haven't done any programming before, or tracking undo commands is actually a lot more complicated, at least from my experience, than it seems. So I don't fault the team at all. But it was kind of interesting that I had spent all that work doing that theoretically, right? If you imagine, and then you accidentally click remove. Woo! That would be rough. Okay, Nikolai, I see you in the chat. Oh, it does jump at 29:21. Okay. That's good to know. See, this is one of the reasons, to be honest, I had split up the recording at one point. I had like the Twitch part. I downloaded a Twitch and then I verified everything, or I like updated stuff and then push it to YouTube. But for now, I guess we'll call this a necessary evil, I guess, of the live stream approach and having it pushed directly to YouTube. One, the benefit for me clearly is that you all get the information as soon as you can. It's not contingent on me downloading it from Twitch and uploading it. It sounds easy, but you'd be surprised how much administrative work goes into that. But that is, yeah. And so again, what we talk about here, I'm going to be trying to do better jobs of doing write-ups of, and that's the big thing I'm actually trying to take away from this, is that the live stream is a way for us to hang out, for me to talk about these things, and then I'd like to consolidate them into sort of more written thoughts. So that's kind of the thought behind there. But Nikolai, thank you so much for checking that for me in the YouTube playback. You know what? Actually, what I'm going to do, we are going to follow what we preach. And so in Obsidian office hours, we should check on 29:21 for playback skip. Cool. Cool beans. So, okay. So actually, what's funny, we talked a lot about Obsidian bookmarks, but again, let's live by what we preach. And so now we should have an Obsidian bookmark section. And then honestly, this part, I'm just going to add a related to, because I don't want to. So you might be wondering, why don't I do this? You're probably thinking that. Probably is some value in doing that. But once you've paired this with a specific feature of it, I don't think people are making bookmarks out of Obsidian rocks. So I don't, in this particular case, I don't mind it being just like this without the proper, like the @ symbol. It's really more for like people, actual apps, not necessarily services, I think, because I'll usually try to prefix it with the app. Anyways, I went on a rant. Okay, bookmarks. So again, we talked about some pros, high level. Pros, basically, headings can be used in multiple places. Cons, which I'm a big fan of emojis, by the way. So let's do that real quick and thumbs up. Cons, notes can only be bookmarked once. Folder bookmark groups allow for contextual project-based thinking. Because that's sometimes the challenge, isn't it? Is that when you're working inside of a note, yes, you can certainly do all this stuff yourself, but there's something organic about like almost like you're like diving in and surfing through your notes. And as you go through, being like, you know what? Yeah, this is cool. I'm gonna like bookmark this block, and I'm just gonna throw it under, you know, note-taking apps, and it's like boom, like it's already in there. Rather than having to open the note, know which exactly, because you saw earlier, like if you want to bookmark a head, or if you want to include a heading, you have to know exactly which note it is. There's a little bit of friction that happens there. So actually, I'm realizing that too. Less friction. That doesn't make sense. Or less friction to note something for later context. Because think about, I mean, honestly, how many times have you gotten a link from somebody that you want to read, like a blog post article, or they're like, check this out later. And you're like, cool, I want to do that, but I want to do it under this context. Usually there's enough like obstacles that makes it actually pretty tricky to do. Whereas, don't get me wrong, with this, at the bare minimum, it does mean that I can easily say, actually throw that in this context instead. Without, to be clear, without messing up your original folder organization structure, which I do think for the, like, once you have your basic system set up, you really don't want to keep messing with that, particularly when notes can live in different contexts. And not only can they, I would argue they should, because isn't that the, call it the magic of notes in the long run when you're thinking of a linked thinking approach. Again, big thanks to Nick Milo for pushing this sort of concept out, is that you want notes to connect to each other. You want these ideas to find ways to relate to one another. Anyhow, I see Fawad in the chat. Hello, how's it going? Apologies if I mispronounced your name. That was my best guess based on the spelling. Glad to have you. So we are talking about getting basically a first look reaction at Obsidian Bookmarks. That is the topic for today. Okay, so that's that. The cons, notes can only be bookmarked once. Anything else that I did? Oh yeah, you can use, the bookmark titles can be aliases that don't impact search results. I think that's a great thing. I actually don't think that's not a con at all. And then any other cons that I'm a little bit, I think that's honestly basically it. To be honest, yeah, nope. Can use emojis in file name or in alias in bookmark name since it's not restricted by the file system. So as you can see here on first glance, granted, I could always come up with anti-patterns and stuff going forward, but it does allow you to start rearranging your brain and notes in a way that is contextual to you at a given time. So, I mean, my brain is already thinking of ways that, like, if you really wanted to, what's stopping you from being like, all right, these are the notes that are going to be relevant to me in June 2023. And you could certainly start to collect them there, which once again, oh, that is the other con. I'm glad I said that. Bookmarks that are grouped together are not, do not contain any inherent relationship. So I would actually, I was about to like propose like this way of like time boxing your bookmarks to be like, these are my 2023 bookmarks, and like these bookmarks are objectives, and like that works up to a very specific point. And then I think eventually you're like, wow, I spent all this time creating this like massive folder infrastructure and it doesn't really aggregate in a way that's useful to me. So I'm going to say disregard that idea because I don't think that'll ultimately be worth it in the long run. I will be sharing I'll be sharing my ideas around, I'll call it road mapping, like each year, whether it's like day, weekly, month, quarter, year. I have a whole idea of how that should work. So that's an entirely separate topic we'll cover sometime. So I digress. But as we can see here, the prose is actually pretty strong here. Bookmarks is, at least in my first reaction, first evaluation, is a clear win for the ecosystem because they've replaced the starring feature. Because I think even if I looked it up right now, yeah, I think start as a functionality is gone. Maybe I'm wrong though. Format converter, random note, slides. Yeah, I don't see start anymore. So I think they did take it away, which is good because, again, for those, if you didn't play with it before, you're not missing out on anything, because Starred was essentially a much simpler version of Bookmark and just didn't work as well. I remember feeling it was like kind of clunky. So I personally really never touched it all that much. So yeah, that's basically that. And so yeah, so we've linked that over. This is great. And we have that linked over here now, which is awesome. So that's completed. Okay. So that takes care of that. And we have now talked about, Obsidian Bookmarks. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to address, because I know this is something that I announced recently, is that a lot of people have been asking about when I'm going to create some sort of Obsidian course, that kind of thing. And course creation can be a tricky thing to do, especially when it comes to making sure things are up to date, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the teaching styles that probably isn't surprising given my proclivity to live streams is I like teaching live, because there's something to be said about tailoring content to the people there at that moment, rather than just sort of trying to cover a generic spectrum and hoping that people get some value out of it. Whereas we can contextualize in a live environment when we're learning from one another. So as a result, rather than wait forever to create the perfect video course, remember, POP principle, progress over perfection, I'm going to try doing a cohort. Basically, we're actually going to try this out. And so it's called Next Level Notes. Next Level Notes with Obsidian. And so at this point, I don't think I have, oh yeah, here's the link right here. So I actually can, let me see, how can I do this? I'm going to go ahead and whoops. Okay, here. Let me drop this in. Will this work in YouTube? I think it will. Okay. And then I'll drop this in the Twitch channel as well. Okay. So to be clear though, and remember what we talked about earlier here in the stream, I actually want to be consistent to let you inform the consistency with this, is that this link is not for you to buy anything. Yeah, you're not giving me credit card information. Like, this is just to express interest, to tell me that like this is something I would consider doing. Basically, is what I'm looking for. And more importantly, like by signing up for this, you're basically gonna say you're signing up for a newsletter, in the sense that when more information comes out about Next Level Notes with Obsidian, you'll get it. So when when I have an official landing page telling you what exactly I intend to teach from like a topic perspective, what its intent is, and whether it's for you, then that'll let you know whether that's the right context for you. I can tell you right now already, for those, especially, again, this is the benefit of coming to this stuff live and I guess being a part of Obsidian office hours, because you get to hear my thoughts live about this stuff, is that Next Level Notes at a high level, the pitch of this is, I am expecting people coming into this to basically already know what Obsidian is. There will be like a quick, there may be a quick discussion regarding making sure we're all on the same page to establish a baseline. But the truth is, there are a ton of wonderful free Obsidian resources out there on YouTube for getting started with it. In fact, I have a video for Obsidian Office Hours 1 point where like I taught people how to get started with Obsidian. Granted, that one was a little long, so you probably will see at some point some sort of free video YouTube series that's a little bit more polished so that people can just get started with Obsidian. Because I don't think that's the kind of thing that I want to gatekeep. I don't really think people need to pay money to learn the basics of Obsidian. The idea with Next Level Notes is to talk about, once you understand the markdown and basic things of Obsidian, most people's next question from what I've seen is, where do I go from there? So my plan is to do this only over 2 weeks, because honestly, I found that cohorts that last longer than that, it's tricky to keep people's attention. And a lot of people can't, I don't know, it's hard to commit that amount of time, even if it's just once a week. Because usually cohorts also come with homework too. At least the ones that like they say they want you to get the most out of it, which I understand in the scheme of like, if you want to get the most out of content. But from my personal experience with the fact that there are just other things in life going on, I want you to be able to actually just say, this is the amount of time it'll take me. So the design of this cohort is really to basically be like, look, we're going to take 2 weeks. And when I say 2 weeks, by the way, I don't mean like every single day. It's going to happen over 2 weeks. The plan is to be 4 sessions in total. So 2 sessions each week. And the reasoning behind that is because I at first was like, oh, maybe we could do it once a week. That'll be easier for everyone. But I feel like there's not quite enough contact points at that in that particular model where it would actually probably be as useful for people, because let's face it, we need some repetition. And when you're learning something new for the first time, having that point of contact and building community bonds, it'll be better if we can have those multiple touch points. So it'll be 4 sessions spaced out basically over 2 weeks. And then the big thing with this too is that it's a live cohort, meaning we'll be talking about different patterns. So the goal for me at a high level is 4 different topics over the 4 different sessions that allow you to take your Obsidian notes to the next level of the context you care about. And so the techniques are meant to not necessarily be like, some Obsidian courses that I've seen are very specific towards like research, students, yada, yada. My goal is to teach you principles and techniques that are common enough that I've seen amongst the different industries, whether it's writing stories, whether it's, again, you're a student, whatever, that like if you understand the principles behind the technique of what drives Obsidian and the different things that I found to be very helpful, my theory is that that will be incredibly valuable for you to customize and tailor Obsidian to the way that you need it to work. So as a result, it's really in a sense about, I don't want to call it best practices because again, that implies that I have some empirical data regarding like how everyone's doing it, but they're patterns at the bare minimum. They're patterns I've seen in the ecosystem that I want to share with you. But on top of all that, what I do want to say is that Next Level Notes is meant to be a live cohort at first, but in the event you can't attend live, or that's not the format for you, or frankly, if it's cost prohibitive, my goal is honestly to release content of that nature anyhow throughout. It's one of the reasons why, one, there's no rush to purchase anything. I'm not doing the cohort immediately. Most likely it's going to be towards the end of the year, like end of September, maybe even October. Because in the meantime, what I want to be able to show people here is that if you can get value from these office hours and you're getting value from the blog posts I write about Obsidian, and that is enough to help you move forward, that is great. But the reason I'm creating this cohort is because I know some people benefit from having that learning community. And I want to give people that format for those who want like a more dedicated time to sit down with other people who want to also up their Obsidian skills, and we can learn from one another, right? In terms of like the different patterns, how we're doing it, and then basically upgrade our skills with Obsidian. And so there will be, my plan is most likely to record it as well. But again, this is just at a high level what I wanted to let you know. And so that link you saw there, once again, is just to express interest, learn more about it. With this cohort at the end of the day. So I just wanted to cover that. Honestly, I think we actually covered a lot today. So I left a working session bullet in the event that like Obsidian Bookmarks was a kind of quick thing and we covered everything in like within the first 30 minutes or so. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up because it looks like I'm checking the chat and I'm not seeing, cool. I'm not seeing any particular questions around anything at the moment. So I think we can go ahead. Let's move on to the wrap up for this particular session. Okay, great. Oh, I could have cut that a little differently. Anyways, things to improve. All right. Well, okay, so that is a wrap for this week's Obsidian Office Hours. Going forward, if you want to check kind of what's up and coming, don't go to this just yet because I need to update the schedule. But if you go to bencozen.io/schedule, that'll basically let you know when I'm live streaming. And more importantly, over time, you're going to see a lot of updates coming to the website regarding blog posts. I also plan to have a dedicated Obsidian page for those who are only interested in the Obsidian content. And then if, and vice versa for those who are interested in coding, there'll be a separate one for that as well. But otherwise, I'm really excited for honestly, kind of a new chapter with the content creation for myself. And hopefully you all get some value out of this. And in the meantime, if you ever have any feedback on things I can do to better improve the experience, or honestly, any questions that you have, this is the whole point of this. I want to answer as many of these questions live. And as you're talking about different patterns, whatnot, like I want to hear from y'all. So yeah. I think that's about that. So again, thanks everyone for hanging out with me today. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe. And as always, I really do need to work off on the sign off piece, to be quite honest. I still haven't figured out I don't know what my sign off phrase is yet, but again, really appreciate you all spending the time with me today. Being here in the chat is always motivating to see and see chats from you all. And yeah, I guess I will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.